Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I need you to take a seat if you are standing. Given what we just saw at the Mubadala Abu Dhabi, you might want to grab onto anything if you're seated. Open is more than simply a headline in sports. It's an earthquake. From Manolato, Moscow to the well-kept courts of the United Arab Emirates to the icy steppes of Russia, women's tennis has undergone a seismic transformation. We are discussing an outcome that defies reason, the odds makers, and the WTA circuit hierarchy itself. We saw a clear path for the titans of the sport when we looked at the draw going into this tournament. We witnessed Elena Rybakina, the third-ranked player in the world, the ice queen of the court, and a player whose serve is frequently referred to as a weapon of mass destruction. Rybakina, a Kazakhstani player who was born in Moscow and had the whole Russian-speaking tennis community's attention, entered the Abu Dhabi center court as the clear favorite. She has won a Grand Slam. She is an expert on the hard court. She is a player who consumes pressure on a daily basis. On the other side of the net, we had Alexandra Eala, the underdog, the wild card, and the pride of the Philippines. Yes, a rising star. Definitely a talent to watch. But in opposition to Rybakina? Against the world number 3's sheer shot weight and velocity? At best, the analysts gave her a puncher's chance. It was anticipated that Rybakina would easily win in straight sets, a warm-up match as she advanced to another championship. However, my friends, sports aren't played on paper. It can be played on grass, clay, or concrete. And now on Abu Dhabi's harsh, hard courts. It was performed in the heart. There is now breaking news from the United Arab Emirates. The world of tennis has completely changed. Alexandra Eala has accomplished the unimaginable in what is regarded as one of the year's most frenetic, high-octane, and technically perplexing matches. She faced off against Elena Rybakina in a match that not only tested but also utterly destroyed the limits of physical stamina. This segment's title, Ho, Russia Shocked, is not hyperbole. The Russian tennis community's social media platforms are in complete disarray. The discussion boards are ablaze. The commentators are at a loss for words. Why? Because Elena Rybakina, the player who typically controls every point with brutal efficiency, encountered a wall of resistance that was so strong, so cunning, and so unrelenting that it destroyed the perception of the elite level of women's tennis. This was more than an upset. It was a live broadcast of a revolution. We saw a collision of styles that coaches will study for years to come. On the one side, you had Rybakina's flat, quick, stifling ballistic onslaught. On the other hand, Eala's cunning, tenacity, and unbeatable counterpunching. We witnessed rallies lasting more than 20 to 30 shots. Serve speeds that shouldn't be returnable were observed, but were given back with curiosity. We witnessed a tiebreak that seemed to go on forever, in which each point was a miniature drama, a game of fate played out with graphite and yellow fuzz. However, why is the shock so intense? The way the fight was fought is the reason behind this. Rybakina did not perform poorly. I want to be clear about that. This wasn't an instance of the favorite collapsing or losing the game due to careless mistakes. No, Rybakina brought her fire. The aces were brought by her. Her forehands were devastating, and Eala took it all in. Her ranking belies the accuracy with which she redirected the power of a Grand Slam winner. This contest has enormous ramifications. It makes Rybakina wonder if they are vulnerable to a new generation of cunning left-handers. It is a moment of astonishment for the Russian tennis community, who still consider Rybakina to be one of their own despite her flag. A revelation that the hierarchy is not as strong as it first appeared. And now is the time for Alexandra Eala. This is the arrival. This indicates to the locker room that the child has removed her gloves and is prepared to go hunting the largest game on the safari. This will be dissected frame by frame. We'll examine the psychology, the shot geometry, and the crucial points where the momentum fluctuated like a hurricane's pendulum. We'll talk about how explosive the conflict was. The crowd that turned from courteous applause to boisterous, deafening yelling as they understood they were watching history, the stare-downs, the tactical changes. Get ready for an exploration of a miracle's anatomy. It's more than just a match report. This is a forensic examination of the process used to make a gigantic shake. This is Elena Rybakina versus Alexandra Eala. This is the world-shocking narrative about the Abu Dhabi Open. I'll give you a news headline and a few important news excerpts. Please write a comprehensive, extremely professional news script for YouTube that includes the major body of the script. Now let's go on to the in-depth analysis. We must remove the layers of this interaction. We must first comprehend the volatile components that were combined in the center court crucible in order to comprehend the explosion. Let's set the scene. David versus the Ice Queen, the pre-match story. Here, context is crucial. Elena Rybakina came to Abu Dhabi as the woman to beat, not merely as a rival. She had had a terrific hard-court season before this. Rybakina's style of play represents the highest level of first-strike tennis. In terms of statistics, her serve is among the most dominant in WDA history. The speed isn't the only factor, frequently reaching 120 miles per hour. However, the positioning. She hits targets as precisely as a sniper. Usually, she has a straightforward strategy. Point over, crush the forehand, serve large, and receive a brief return. It is violent, threatening, and effective. Prior to this match, the discourse in the Russian and Kazakhstani media was nearly dismissive, not out of malice but more due to statistical probability. Who Rybakina would play in the semifinals or finals made news. The game versus Eala was seen as a schedule filler and a formality. This hubris is the root of the entire Russia-shocked sentiment. Everyone assumed they were unbeatable. Alexandra Eala comes in. The Filipino phenomenon has been intense. We are familiar with her story, her training at the Rafa Nadal Academy and her accomplishment at the Junior Grand Slam, but the move to the Pro Tour is somewhat different. Eala has an inherent tactical advantage because she is a lefty, especially WH. Eala grasped. At 3-3, the shock started to build. Rybakina was cruising on serve when she unexpectedly dropped to 0-30. Two unusual mistakes? No, two forced mistakes. Eala had intervened. On Rybakina's second serve, usually a heavy kick, Eala took the ball on the rise, taking time away from the giant. Rybakina was taken off guard as she sent a backhand down the line. The stadium fell silent. Pens were probably hovering over the notebooks of the Russian commentary crews as they paused. In keeping with her champion mentality, Rybakina used aces to save the breakpoints. However, the seed was sown. Eala was hunting in addition to surviving. The first dramatic incident mentioned in the headline occurred during the first set's tiebreak. It was more than a point exchange. It was an attrition fight. Eala, scrambling like a woman possessed, managed to float a deep defensive lob back to the baseline, resetting the point, after Rybakina smashed a forehand into the corner at 100 miles per hour. Eala won the first set 7-6. There was a mixture of electrifying excitement and bewilderment in the stadium. It was registering the shock. In a tiebreak, a wild card had just taken a set off to world number 3, who was outgunned but not outthought. The third is the masterclass in tactics. Flat power against lefty spin. Let's examine the technical factor that led to this disruption. Why was Rybakina having trouble? Why is the tennis community in Russia so confused? Rhythm is what Rybakina loves. She can change the ball's speed since she enjoys it coming at her quickly. It's basic physics. If you time it well, the rebound will be faster the ball comes in. That pace was denied to her by Eala. Eala treated what we refer to as rubbish with the utmost respect. Different heights. Spins that vary. The tall Kazakh player is forced to hit down by her powerful topspin loops, which bounce high above Rybakina's shoulder and enhance the likelihood of finding the net. Eala would then skid one low and flatten it out on the subsequent shot. The Rybakina racket made explosive, unforced mistakes as a result of this continuous disturbance of the strike zone. You could see the annoyance growing. Rybakina would glance at her box while pointing to her racket and the surface of the court. However, the equipment wasn't the issue. The geometry was the cause. Eala was making things. The exchange across the court was crucial. Rybakina's backhand is hit by Eala's lefty forehand cross-court. Rybakina's backhand is typically a rock. Eala wasn't hitting it flat, though. She was striking it at a very sharp angle and dip. In order to make room for Eala's wins, Rybakina was being dragged off the court. The Empire retaliates. The third-ranked person in the world deserves recognition. Russia as a whole was stunned by the second set. Orders appeared to be restored, and the narrative paused momentarily. Rybakina became enraged. She increased the speed of her serve. She began firing on the second shot instead of participating in protracted rallies. The second set was won 6-2 by Rybakina. The fairy tale appeared to be coming to an end. Eala was clearly suffering physically. It's like doing wind sprints non-stop for 45 minutes while you're trying to catch Rybakina's ground strokes. The pundits became at ease. They said, "Here we go." Orders were reinstated. The superior player has awakened. However, this is where the match's explosive quality really came to life. AV. The decider is an attrition conflict. The last act, the third set. Legends are created here. Eala took a toilet break off the court, came back wearing a new shirt, and a new pair of legs, apparently. It wasn't tennis in the third set. A boxing contest took place. Service holds were used in games 1 through 4, but the fights were deuce after deuce. Fatigue or maybe the strain of a wild card that wouldn't go away caused Rybakina's first serve percentage to start declining. Rybakina's serving at 4-4 was the pivotal moment. Eala predicted the direction of a 115-mile-per-hour serve, blocked it deep, and then engaged in a back-and-forth 24-shot rally at 30-all. With each blow, the audience gasped. At last, Rybakina attempted to finish the point by attempting a down-the-line winner, but he missed by millimeters. Eala is the break point. The stadium burst into flames. The Russian spectators covered their heads with their hands. Eala served for the match at 5-4 after converting the break with an incredible drop shot that was utterly daring against a player of Rybakina's caliber. Eala must have been under tremendous pressure. Russia as a whole anticipated the collapse at this point. The choking. When underdogs are on the verge of a massive killing, they frequently experience vertigo. 2 match points were saved by Rybakina. Eala's second serves were punished by her. It ended in a deuce. Next, include Rybakina's break point. She wins the match if she breaks back. That's how it feels. However, Eala produced the tournament's best shot, a running hitting from outside the doubles alley, passing a forehand shot down the line, then curling back in to catch the paint. Rybakina even cheered. 6 could not do it. The consequences. Why is the world shocked by this? The response was immediate when Rybakina's last ball soared long. Eala collapsed to the floor. With a real expression of disbelief, Rybakina stood at the net. Why is Russia astonished by this hole? The difference in rankings. We are comparing a player vying for a spot in the top 50 with the third-ranked player in the world. The disparity between experience, points, and wages is enormous. The surface Abu Dhabi is a hard court that moves quickly. It is specifically designed for Rybakina. A smart player or a defensive baseliner shouldn't be able to simply dismantle a power hitter on this surface. Eala disregarded the court's rules. The question of consistency. Rybakina is renowned for her early round steadiness. She hardly ever loses players who aren't in the top 20. The draw is left empty as a result of this defeat, and the betting markets are in disarray. The fan base/geopolitical perspective. The fan following in Kazakhstan and Russia is extremely fervent. They consider Rybakina to be the legitimate successor to the women's tennis throne. It is shocking to the system that a young emerging star from the Philippines, a country with a developing but lesser tennis footprint, was able to demolish her. It refutes T.